So in today's society, we always talk about control. Control of our finances, control of our time, control of what kind of social circles we can get into or be a part of, and even with COVID, control of our circles and control of where we can go. It's all about control. But the question is, do we really talk about document control? So we're going to get into that today. Thanks for joining. So today we're going to talk about document control and specifically version control. So controlling your documents with respect to the versions of the types of documents or the number of documents that you have. Usually what people do is, because version control is something that's sort of foreign to a lot of individuals, what they'll do is they'll call their documents draft 1, draft 2, revision 1, revision 2, etc., etc., etc. But with SharePoint and Teams, you don't really need to do that anymore. You can just kind of call the document whatever you want, and it will do version control for you. We're going to get right into that right now. So I'm going to go into my Teams, and I immediately come into my Teams view, and then I have my Teams here, and then I'm going to go into a specific channel, my default channel, which is my general channel, and then I'm going to go to my files, and this is basically where I can really create new documents, add documents, upload documents, and whatnot. But also, as I upload documents and manipulate documents, I'm also creating different versions of those documents every single time I make a change to those documents. So let's start from scratch. Let's create a brand new Excel document. We're going to give it a name. I don't know. I'm just calling it finance. So I don't know if I'm going to put any numbers in here. Most likely I will. And so now we have a new Excel document. And I can just put in some numbers. So that's basically it. Welcome to my amazing budget Excel spreadsheet. Pretty cool. Not really. So what I can do is, of course, in our previous video, we showed that as soon as you make changes to a document, it's automatically saved. So we're going to go back out here. And as you can see, here's my finance document. And let's call this the first version of my finance document, which has no actual numbers. So all I really did was, in the first version, I just kind of created the template. Again, pretty basic. And then I got out of it. But this is technically the first version. Now, I could have called it finance version 1 and revision 1 or build 1 or whatever I want to call it. But I don't need to really do that. If I go to the ellipsis, and if okay, so it doesn't have it here in Teams, which is a little disappointing, but rest assured, version control does exist. But for some strange reason, it doesn't want to show up, or SharePoint or Microsoft is not specifically allowing for version control to show up in the Teams view of this document. So normally what you do is you click on the ellipsis and you should see something here called version history. But unfortunately, to see that, you got to go into SharePoint. And in the previous video I said, any single time you go to the tabs, the files tab in any channel, so this is the channel we're in, and then we're in this file tab in this channel, it's always basically SharePoint. You're basically just kind of porting into SharePoint. So you always have an option here called Open in SharePoint. So what we're going to do to further show you my example, we got to open it up in SharePoint. So now that I have this in SharePoint, if I click on the ellipsis now, here it is, version history. So if I click on this, as you can see, there's 2 versions. Most likely because I did go into the file twice, but I didn't make any changes. So it's interesting why the size is different. But anyways, basically this is my first version. Actually, no, in all reality, I can understand why. So when I initially created it, it was just a blank file, and then I added some information, and then it, made those changes as well, or saved those changes as well. And so these are the two different versions. If I wanted to go back to an old version, I could, and vice versa. So let's continue on with this. I'm going to open this document up within SharePoint, and I could do the same thing in Teams as well, but again, because of the version history doesn't currently exist or show up in Teams, I'm just going to continue this in SharePoint. So let's say, for example, now I want to start adding some information or numbers here. So let's say $400 a month, and then my car payment is $800. Right, so basically I made some changes here. We could always just format this to dollars, like that. And this is my budget. I just updated it, made some changes. So if I go back, I could always go back here. And so again, my document is still here, haven't called it anything different. And now if I go to version history, you're going to see a third version. And so now this third version is showing my latest and greatest information. And as you can see here, it also says the document was updated a few seconds ago. I can go back in here, and again, I can see my data, it's saved. Let's say, for example, I made a mistake, I want to change this to 900, and here we go. And so now the document has been updated again, and if I go to version history, it's going to show me a fourth version. And as you can see, I have all my other previous versions as well. And again, we'll go back in here and we'll see that it is in fact still remaining at 400 and 900. But let's say, for example, that I want to say go back to my previous version. Well, it's pretty easy. What I can do is I can just go back to the previous version here, and it's going to ask me if I want to restore. And it'll prompt me, I'm about to restore this particular version. And then now what it should do is it should create a fifth version. So it actually doesn't overwrite my previous version or the most current version. It just creates a new version of the previous version of the one that it restored. So in a sense, again, you don't really need to call your documents anything to show others that what current version it's on. You could actually keep your document as is and just keep with the description of that document and let SharePoint just do the version history for you. So now if I go back here, this has now been restored from the previous version 3, and now this is version 5, which is the current, and now you're going to see not 300 but 800. As you remember, I had it at 800 before, and then I changed it to 900, and so there you go. So this is our new version. And again, if I wanted to say go back and revert it back to the previous version, which would be version 4. So again, version 6 is because I just opened it up. It always saves every single time you open it up. I could always restore this one. And then it's going to create a version 7. I know it can get really confusing, but rest assured your data is always there in the background, always saved. And here you go, this is version 9. So again, just like how we have control of everything else in our lives, we have a lot of control with respect to our documents as well. We're not just limited to just creating the name of the document and using that name as its way to understand what kind of versions we have. So there's a lot of value in leveraging the version control. Version control is turned on by default for all libraries that you create in SharePoint, and it's a really great tool to have. Again, it would be great if it was available here in Teams, but I'm sure Microsoft is working towards that. So we could always stay tuned for that. One thing to note is always the most recent version is always the one that everyone else will be able to see. You can limit other people's ability to see draft versions or older versions as well. Well, draft versions, not necessarily versions like the main versions that you publish. But you could always, that's another discussion. You could have draft versions, which are beta versions or published versions that other people may be able to see, but other people can't see. Anyways, don't want to make it too confusing, but if I open up this version, as you can see, it's a 400/900, which is the most recent version that I had published or restored within SharePoint. And so that's pretty much it. So version control is pretty cool. And if you have any questions or concerns, please reach out. Thanks for listening. Bye.